Welcome to the Logjam, Darren, season 15 of the League of Gentlemen and the 5th season of the Logjam, man. How you feeling?
I'm feeling old as fuck after hearing you say that. 15 years of you assholes and 5 years of you assholes has been absolutely the entertainment of my life. So I appreciate it, and welcome to the show.
And yeah, cheers to our ones of viewers that have made it through with us, guys. We couldn't do it without you. Thanks for tuning in.
Probably could.
We're happy. We're happy to have you back for this season. Last year we spent, we always opened up with Cardinal Talk, so I guess that's on the board again this year. Cardinal Talk this year. Not worth it. We're going to skip over that and get right into the most important thing in the league. Since you came in last time, the draft took place.
Yes, it did take place. A couple of things. Successful draft. Thank you all for coming, participating. It's what makes this league fun, is that we do all show up, at different venues.
Most of us.
Well, most of us every year. But most of us show up every year, and it's a good time, and it's at a different venue, and it's a great experience. So once again, I appreciate the participation of showing up.
I don't think this year's draft can be discussed without talking about what might be considered a coup. We had scheduled the draft at the login. Hughes, your daddy, was gonna
A year
ago, we had agreed to a space. 10 days, 2 weeks before the draft, enough of the league kind of banded together and put a proposal on the board. And the way the league works, that's more of us wanted to do the draft in Tempe, so we moved the draft 2 weeks ahead of time.
Yep.
I think all in all, there's some pros and cons on both sides. It was a beautiful venue.
Yes, it was.
I think for the keeper draft, when you were in Michigan, there was a little more confusion as to where to park and how to get there and what lobby to stay in. It was some initial kind of working out some kinks.
Well, I even saw that for myself when I was there. If we're on the con list for the moment, the parking kind of was. It's a lot for Gary to have to come in and out with a key fob and let him rip the elevator, let him out of the elevator, park on the 4th floor, park on the 2nd floor. That's definitely a negative. But like you also said, the positive of the venue, having the big, huge screen with the draft board on it.
I think that I had that down as the number one addition of this year's draft. It wasn't even a venue thing for me. Young and confused, being the technology man that he is, the only person in the league under the age of 70, I believe, was able to get our live draft board up on the screen, and that was a huge leap forward to the League of Gentlemen.
Very cool.
Made the draft fantastic for those of us that did make it. Smoking was mentioned as we typically take breaks. Wasn't easily accessible. I don't think that was necessarily a killer.
Well, I'll throw breakfast on the board though.
Breakfast. Tom Farrell cooking was definitely a different situation there. That's a nice addition to the login. I think that's something that probably should be talked about at the mid-season meeting, where we want to do it.
Yeah.
I guess between now and then we have to figure out where to do the mid-season meeting as well.
I thought it was awesome. Thanks again, Gary, for hooking it up. I thought there was a ton of positive about it. So
yeah, big kudos. Centrally located, I think, was the reason that we got there. I think with some growing pains and a little bit of practice, I think we're going to get there and make that a pretty great place. Again, the draft itself overshadowed by the absence.
Well, I was going to say, the great part about the place we had, or even Tom Farrell's place, or even your place, is that none of those places Benner can get us kicked out of.
This is true, harkening back to the incident at Dave & Buster's.
But it doesn't fucking matter if Benner ain't going to show up.
Doesn't matter at all.
I mean, let's talk about that for a minute.
I guess let's set the scene a little bit. 10 o'clock draft.
Yep.
Remarkably, all 9 of us were there right at 10 o'clock. It was kind of by the hair of our chin. A couple people ahead of time, but everyone walks in, but there aren't 9 of us. So by league rules, we put a 15-minute window in. We took care of any new and old business. We voted without him. We sat around and waited for him to get there. I don't know how many missed calls he had, but it had to be upwards of 40.
Yeah, I don't think Benner is upset about this, and I think for the 9 of us that were there, we handled this like gentlemen. We talked to each other. We proposed, what should we do here? Because this isn't something that had happened in the past when the draft is going to start in 2 minutes and that individual's not there. Do we put the best available player on his team? Do we, obviously continue to call him, but do we just pass him on those spots, and then if he does join, we can give him those picks and roll? There was a lot of proposals. There was 9 gentlemen looking at it with honest and good intention, but by doing what we did, it does set a league standard.
And we're going to call it, for lack of a better term, the Fury precedent, or the bathroom incident, depending on where the phone was left. Anytime a player misses, we do run the 15-minute time. We run their 1-minute draft slot plus all 3 of their extensions.
All in effort to give them time to call
as
in.
much time as they can be there. We're going to run the draft. We're not going to make it any faster, but we're not going to make it any slower. When he did show up at about 10:45 or 10:50,
6th round,
the end of the 5th, going into the 6th round, he'd missed 5 picks. We stopped the draft. We gave him time to collect himself a little bit. And then we started the clock, and we gave him more leeway probably than we should have in that window. But,
That's
7 minutes earlier, we had one of his coworkers going over to make sure he didn't have a stroke. So
yeah,
he's alive, he's recovering. We give him a little bit of time to receive.
Okay.
He takes his picks, and then we move on with the draft from there. And I think going forward, that's it. And if you don't make it to the draft, we'll give you the window before waivers process to pick each of those slots. I think that's fair. I think we decided that. Moving forward, that will be the Binter precedent.
And we'll throw in the rule book under a new, bold, underlined section where, hey, this is now the better rule or whatever.
And we're really stoked that Tom Farrell has taken over the rule book part of stuff, because I might have fallen a little bit behind.
Wait, what?
We'll tell you about it later. But
Yeah, later.
Okay. I think that covers the draft. I mean, it was a great time. Again, thanks, Gary, for hosting it. It was a fantastic time. We really other than no breakfast and no dinner, no B&B. But getting back into it, let's get into the games. Week 1 of the season. Why we do this?
We're here.
Starting off with the only game that even mattered Monday for the most part. The Pimps, 136 over the Scoregasms, 125. 2 teams probably predicted by a lot of people to be in the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at roster construction to start after the draft and keepers before we saw week 1 activity, I think it would be reasonable to say both these teams would be battling for a playoff spot. So we caught Gary in our yard this week, which was really nice. Obviously, Gary hasn't beat me in fantasy yet, so this was a game that we were hyped up for, as well as opening day. We wanted to make sure to keep that streak alive. And, other than weathering the Mahomes storm with 48 points, 5 touchdowns, he had a great showing from McCaffrey, I think, A.J. Dillon. I think all those players showed up for him. Just was a little bit too much with what he ran into, I guess.
Yeah, Cortland Sutton didn't need much on Monday night, just needed 10 sub points. Once he got the first catch, the floodgates open and you kind of put him away. There wasn't much drama left in the game. A nice effort for the Pimps. A.J. Brown, fantastic pick.
Yeah,
leading scorer, not one of your keepers. I keep looking at that Chubb hunt. Obviously, we traded you Chubb in the offseason, but having both pieces in that Cleveland backfield might be pretty big going forward.
I think both are maybe viable starters in a week, and a flex spot with Kareem Hunt. But yeah, again, A.J. Brown was just ended up being a good first round pick. As of now, it's week 1, but 13 targets, 10 catches for 155 is what you're looking for from that first position. So I was happy with that. Kyler had a good game with 25. The things that I worry a little bit about the roster that I have currently is Alvin Kamara. has 8 points.
Super Mario.
Super Mario, and I should have played Michael Thomas. For me, that's a little bit of a worry. For Gary, on the other hand, I think he's got to worry a little bit about CeeDee Lamb. I think he's got to worry about Darnell Mooney, and I think he's got to worry about the production of Mike Williams, all of which he played this week. And, just not a good showing, not good target share, not a good production. So, especially with that CeeDee Lamb, and I'm sure we'll get into Dak and all that, but there's just some things that Gary will be probably addressing real quickly.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes made the move to pick him up, pays off, but having your quarterback score 38% of your points might not lead to the best season.
Well, unless your quarterback's scoring 100, you're right, yeah.
I think there's some bench points out there. I think there's a lot on this roster that might indicate some regression to the mean in a situation where they might not have underperformed this week that you're probably going to expect. Yeah, it's just a matter of if they keep underperforming, like, can you trust them?
Yeah, and this is Overreaction Monday for us, right? This is week 1, episode 1. We're going to overreact to some things. So.
We are, and we always do for sure. So nice win for the Pimps. They start out 1-0. The other game, second game, we're going to start with Young and Confused. Pretty much what becomes a bye week. 145 over the Sin 56.
Yeah, good for Andrew. Corey really didn't show up this week, but he had some injury issues and some draft issues and some franchise issues and some issues. So, but Andrew capitalized on
more issues than Time Magazine.
Yeah, and Joe Burrow showed up for him, which I'm sure better. Snooze alarm.
I think Joe Burrow probably will be a thorn in Bender's side for some time to come. His draft was set up to take a number of people there in the second and third rounds. I love that pick from Young and Confused. Not as much as I love the Michael Pittman keeper. I loved him from the very beginning. Yeah. Obviously, I'm in tune to the Colts offense right now. I think he is going to be a beast moving forward.
Yeah, had a great game. Caught 9 balls for 121 yards and a score, so...
a couple nice notes on the bench. I think Dotson is good, moving forward. I think Montgomery's probably the big question mark.
I think there's a little worry there. Yeah.
I think Rashad Bateman's a nice piece. I think there's a lot on this bench. Young and Confused for me is a top 3, top 2 team. I think moving forward, I look to have him in the top all season.
And we'll just take a little 20-second dive here. I would like to say that Andrew, when he joined this league, struggled for the first couple years settling in, but since then he's really, maybe doesn't have 100 championships, but really settled in as a GM. Really good roster construction. He's done a great job. We considered him as GM of the year last year. So
I think one thing, and we'll talk a little bit later about this, about who went at the beginning of this year's particular draft. But in essence, he moved back. He gave away his first round pick and took Dalvin Cook. That could be something, but it didn't necessarily pay off this week. He won. It didn't matter. I think that moving forward might be a great move for him.
Still had 90 yards. They didn't get in the end zone.
14 points. We talk about it. That's the Mendoza one. You get your starters at 13.8, 14. You're gonna have a good shot to win every time.
Not hitting the panic button on Dalvin Cook.
No, for sure. I think that's a nice roster moving forward. On the other side of this game, this Sin team is maybe, and I don't want to overreaction Monday, maybe the worst roster in the history of the league.
Well, it's Overreaction Monday, so it's a perfect time to say that. That's possible. What entertains me is that he continues to kill players. Whether it's Dalvin Cook, Mac Jones, he just continues to murder players.
I think this might be the first week that he actually killed 2 quarterbacks in one week.
2 birds, 1 stone. Right?
Dak is gone for the year. I don't know what to think of the Sin moving forward. I know that they were only able to start 2 of their keepers, and only one of them scored. So in a league where you get 5 keepers and you manage 10.6 points from those 5 guys, it could be bleak.
It could be bleak. And I think even with the draft, you're hoping to replenish there, and taking Zeke early looks like a good idea, and all of a sudden Dak goes out, and now with Zeke's value, I mean, it just doesn't seem to be going well for the Center.
I'm going to try to find a positive. Clyde Edwards-Helaire looked like a big piece of that offense, and he came off the field.
Better trade him. Better
super
trade him and
early.
get some value.
I
Rebuild that.
think maybe we could talk about that later. But 11 players on this roster scored less than double digits. 16 of the 18 players on his roster scored under 14 points. Yikes. Moving on, the Fury, the defending champion and the 2022 draft MVP, 124 over the Poway Titans, 117.
Well, he got his production from his core, which is what you want week one, right? And so, Joe. I'm sorry, he doesn't have Joe Purdy. Joe Mixon and Jamar Chase putting up a collective 52 points together, so the Bengals came through for him. And Travis Kelce, who's a part of his core, really had it was the only tight end in pretty much fantasy football that had a good week. So good for Benner. On the downside for him, I'm thinking, T. Higgins had a concussion. He only caught 2 balls. And then the Saints defense, you draft them in the 5th round,
early,
I guess. And
not early in the morning because you just woke up.
and they score 1 point for you. So and against the Atlanta offense, which has like Marcus Mariota, so it just makes me worry a little bit there. But otherwise, a win's a win. Good for Benner.
Tough week for the Titans in the sense that the projections had him ahead all week. It kind of felt to me like a game that I would have laid money on the Titans for most of the weekend. Kind of fell flat in a couple of situations. Lamar Jackson performs. It doesn't go crazy.
3 touchdowns. I'll take that.
Decent performance out of your keepers. I think he gets 75 points out of the 5 guys he starts as keepers. I think the Keenan Allen injury is worrisome probably. But in Titan lands, for me, I think it's not starting the Chargers defense.
Yeah, and I know that's a decision that he made and switched back and forth. I don't think it would have been enough to win the week, but at the same time, you want to make those right decisions. With the Keenan Allen thing, he drafted the wide receiver Palmer, who in LA is the Chargers looks too. So it's almost like a handcuff there for him. So I'm not too worried about that. I think it's just a week one kind of thing. I'm not too worried about the Poway offense quite yet.
As it turns out, there was a 9.5 point difference between the Chargers and Philly, and the Fury won the game by 8 points. So that would have actually got him over the top. So that's heartbreaking in Poway Titans land.
Yeah, don't wake up at 3 a.m. in the middle of a sleep and decide to change your life.
God, that is rough.
Go back to bed.
But I still think in our unofficial rankings, I still have the Titans in the top half of this league. I'm convinced that's a playoff team. So I hope we don't see overreaction Tuesday on the waiver wire tonight. Big game. Merci with Zoros. Merci gets it 170 to 132.
I will say one thing I noticed about this game is that every starter that Merci put on the field scored 20 or more points.
In the way we round up.
Other than his kicker and his defense.
Yep.
But every starter that he put on the field scored 20 or more points except Mark Andrews, his tight end, who scored 10. And no tight ends did well this week, but 10's still viable, right? But every other player...
22, 20, 29, 20, 34, 20.1. A really good week from a team that, thus far in the league, we're very short time into the league, looks like probably one of the favorites for the playoffs and potentially a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the Cooper Cup, 13 catches for 128 and touchdown. DeAndre Swift, great pick there, 30 points. Looks like the Lions' offensive line looks really good, so I love that pick. And then Christian Kirk, which kind of surprised me, right? I think we all thought maybe we didn't, but that Christian Kirk got a little bit overpaid. We
were going to pay it.
No, but even in the market, like to be I think at the time he was the 4th highest paid receiver, like Christian Kirk. But he ends up getting 13 catches. I'm sorry, let me correct that. 6 catches for 117 yards on 12 targets. 12 targets?
Yeah.
Like if that's what he's going to see every game, that is that's probably worth the money.
I think it is. I think this OBJYN teamers, first of all, Let's take a moment. Change your team name on the fucking site, bro.
Please.
OBJ Wynn, he's not even in the fucking league.
He's not even an active player. He's not even on any team. He's not signed. At this point, he's retired. So, merci beaucoup. I know we've referred to you on this show for at least 3 years now, I'm going to guess.
Yeah.
With that's where we're going to stay. But just get on there, go to Team Edit, My Info, and fucking change the name.
Might have to do it for you at some point. OBJ Wynn does get almost 114 points out of their 5 keepers, the second highest number of the week. They did start all 5. On the Zorros, on the other hand, I don't think this is something that you're going to, again, overreact to. No. I think 132 is a great number in this league.
Should win you most weeks.
Should win you most weeks, and it would have won him in 7 or 8 games this week. So, great week. The Buffalo defense and Robinson on the bench. Again, not enough to maybe get it this week, but shows a little bit going for him.
Yeah. I think with, his Devontae Adams, his Jalen Hurts, his Jalen Waddle, right? All great players for him this week. Huge upsides. Looks like a high-powered offense like the Zorros always is. I know it's a 0-1 here for him to start, but again, you said 132 is not a shameful number. And the things that I am interested in his roster, Derrick Henry having 8 points. He got 21 carries, so that's a worker they're looking for. But 82 yards, I guess I'm not too worried there. But 8 points is not what you're looking for when you trade 2 first-rounders and Kyler Murray for an item. Elijah Mitchell, 4 points, right, and a broken knee. So I am worried about that for the Zorros, but I also saw that he has Miles Sanders and James Robinson. Both of those guys, I think, were drafted way too late. Both of those guys, I think, may turn around and run their team's offenses. And with Miles Sanders, holy shit, that might be a good offensive. So I think there's no panic button here on Elijah Mitchell. I think he's got two options to fill.
I do. I do want to just note a little bit of potential karmic comeback. I drafted two of the Niners running backs in that offense last year. Trey Sermon gets hurt in the first game. Mostert gets hurt. Elijah Mitchell was a first week pickup for him last year. He does build rosters with running backs that way a lot. I don't think there's anything to worry about here with Zorros at all. But nice win for Mercy.
Yeah, very good win. That's a good win in week 1.
Last game of the week, the Avengers 205, Who's Your Daddy 91.
Well, there was limited excitement in this game other than the fact that you were just watching the Avalon Avengers score and saying, can they break, a record of some kind. It did become a week 1 record. No one has scored 205 points in week 1. That is a fact. So congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And, you did it with... What's most interesting to me, I'm going to get to Daddy in a minute, but what's most interesting to me is that you did it with your 4 keepers and your first-round pick. So the 5 people who basically outscored everyone else's roster in the league, so that to me shows great keepers and a good sense early for the draft. I guess we can talk about the draft and what you see out of that and maybe as we move forward, but overall, congratulations. High points total, great win.
I do appreciate that. We got 143 points out of the 5 keepers, and then when you add Saquon to that as that first pick, I think we feel okay on the top end of the team. There is the existential dread of, did the rest of my draft be an absolute zero when Allen Robinson gets 1 target or 2 targets?
2 targets.
Whatever it happens to be, that hurts. Isaiah Pacheco shows some signs, but only when Hilaire came out. And then not a ton of point production on the bench. So some worry there. Are we worried about Aaron Rodgers?
No.
Probably not. I think he comes back. If we are reliant on Aaron Rodgers, there's a lot more shit that we have to worry about.
If you ever need to start him.
Yeah. So, obviously advised, but I can't imagine that's a situation. Daddy, a good team again, a playoff predicted team coming in. Kind of some fits and starts, doesn't really get it done this week.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those weeks. The roster construction is solid. It's just one of those weeks where whether it be bad matchups or what have you. I mean, he still got his love out of Justin Herbert. His quarterback throws 3 touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy looks like a great pick. 23 points. He had 4 for 102 and scored a touchdown. Players he didn't play, though, is kind of what I'm interested in. And they're both positives. So he didn't play Antonio Gibson. He didn't play Cordell Patterson. Gibson has 20 points, 14 rushes, 7 catches. Cordell Patterson, 26 points, 22 rushes, 120 for a touchdown, and 3 grabs. So there is so much meat on that bench that I'm going to look at this as week 1 and not worry about Adam Thielen and not worry about Josh Jacobs, not worry about Chris Godwin's injury. I think there's enough here that'd be fine.
Knowing Daddy the way we do, we did on Amazon just order a little bit of Tums for him because he's going to have some roster decisions going forward. But that's a good thing, really.
He's got DeAndre Hopkins coming back. He'll be fine.
I think his construction going forward, that has to be a playoff team unless something went drastically wrong. So, nice game, Tommy. I wish it could have been a little bit closer. We just sort of ran away a little bit. But that's your week's games. That's your point scoring right there. Moving on from that, something that Darren brought up in some of our analysis over the weekend was what does it mean for a team? How many points do you score as starters? How many points does your bench score, and what does that makeup mean for your team moving forward? Is there anything predictable about it? Can we talk about it in terms of the potential playoff teams? But we're just going to go through a little bit of information on the stat that we're tentatively calling total roster construction, or TRC.
Yep. So TRC is just what Tom just said. Basically, your entire roster weekly points scored. And again, we'll see how this plays out, whether it has any importance, but it's just an interesting fact. So we ran the numbers for week 1, and of course, the Avalon Avengers with their 205 starters was the highest. But I think you'll find this interesting. 205 starters, and his total team points were 261. So again, we're throwing these stats out there to make you say, well, what does that mean? Well, it wasn't much bench scoring. So does that mean that he played the right players, or does that mean that he has a little bit of work to do on building that bench? Well, it's just interesting. So
I think there's a lot of statistical regression that's going to play into some of these questions. There's some roster building questions. Do we have extra quarterbacks, or
right?
There's
going to be 3 kickers, whatever.
There's for sure no 1-for-1, but I think a 22% bench scoring isn't great moving forward from the sense of a total roster. Yes. Maybe it shows a thin team, but the 78 number, pretty good front end.
Yep, absolutely. We'll just go down the list. And I don't think the points overly matter at this point.
A little bit. It's interesting to talk about the Pimps.
Yeah.
While the 4th highest number had the 2nd highest total roster construction at 243, about 56% of their percentage came from their starters.
So that's well balanced. That's interesting to look at and find to be like, oh, hey, did they play the right players? Did they not? Number 3 would be what? Young and Confused.
Young and Confused at 235, OBJ at 227, the Fury at 220, and Zorro's at 219. Those 5 rosters, the only 5 over 200 points.
Okay.
6.
Well, I think that also makes you think that those 5 or 6 as we get down to Poway, Gary, Who's Your Daddy, and Sin to round it out. I think that maybe we can look at this and start to say, hey, these bottom 4 might be the bottom 4, these top 6 might compete for playoffs, these 7. We're just going to continue to look at it as we go. It's just interesting.
Sin at 138, bringing up the rear. Daddy, 163 total points. The Gares, 175, and Poway at 191 and 7th. So, interesting numbers.
Yeah.
A couple teams, 3 teams in the 70th percentile. Avengers, OBJ, and Gary's. Only the Sin in the 40th percentile of points from starters. Oh. All right. Well, next week's game's coming up. We're going to do some predictions. God, I sure miss Dick, don't you?
I don't think I've ever said that.
Yeah, it's a good time to start. All right. Well, the first game next week, we're going to talk about 2 0-1 teams. The Sin traveling to the Windy City Scoregasm. Who do you like, Derek?
I like anybody playing the Sin.
The Sin, I think we're going to probably treat as a bye week. Pretty easy prediction for both of us. We're both taking the Scoregasms. Game 2, also 2 0-1 teams. The Titans traveling to Who's Your Daddy?
I think this is going to be a real close game. I should have looked at the matchups better here, but I'm going to take the Titans.
History.
You know, Daddy at home. It is the toughest appointment. He is 8-15 against the Titans all time.
Ooh.
I think this is a really important.
So I think we know who his daddy is.
I think this is a really important matchup for both teams.
Shut up, Jared.
I will also take the Titans here. Both of us on the Titans. 2 1-0 teams. The Fury traveling to Young and Confused.
I will take Young and Confused.
Man, we're on the same page. I think Young and Confused here. I think that thinner Fury roster, and I think the construction on Young. I like Young in that game. Another big matchup, 1-0 versus 0-1, the Avengers traveling to the Zorros.
Oh, this is going to be a good one. Battle of league history. I mean, there's been championships maybe won or lost over this game, I think, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm going to take the Avengers.
You know, there's been a lot of fucking bullshit about not picking against you. I'm going to test the theory. I'm taking the Avengers in week 2 over the Zorros. See if we can't break that curse. And what we're predicting should be the game of the week. The Pimps 1-0 at OBJ's.
I think Mercy's roster is very good, and I don't expect to win this week. So I guess if I'm picking against no spread, I'll take OBJ. Or Mercy, sorry.
I can't decide if I want to go with you there. I had circled / underlined the Pimps in this one to go on the road and get a win.
I appreciate the support.
Yeah, I'm going to stick with it. So that's the only one we are different on this week. That's fantastic. That brings us to the mailbag, Darren. Something we started this year for sure. Just playing a little intro music for us.
Yep. We set up an account.
Mike Oxenfire.
Mike Oxenfire
At gmail.com.
Thank you for those of you who reached out to us. That was kind of cool, right? We just were like, hey, here it is. Mike Oxenfire at gmail.com. And you guys hit us up, and we appreciate that. That was a pretty cool response. So we're going to share something with you.
It was. We got 5 total emails this week, which I think out of 11 viewers, I think we're doing fantastic.
We're doing good.
The first one came earlier this month at 1:48 a.m. from Chris B. in Ohio. What time is the draft?
Oh, man.
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next one.
The next one at 10:47 the following morning, also from Chris B. in Ohio, is Ben Roethlisberger still available?
I think he actually is still available.
Yeah, he is now. You can pick him up right now. I think you can draft him. The second one from PJ's R. Cool in Apache Junction. What happened to the carrot and the stick?
Oh, yeah. Well, we decided that those were stupid fucking names, and so we changed it to high points, low points. Same rules apply. Bonus payout to the high point, which this week was the Avalon Avengers, and then low points, which the low points was Cardinal Sin, and he'll be paying that fine.
So he pays his fine out. Might be an expensive year for the Sin as going forward. The fourth email we got for hymns.com. Are your erections not what they used? Mike,
No.
I think that was for daddy. You want to just forward that to who's your daddy at gmail.com.
They get across the emails.
And the fifth one, not Ari, also from Apache Junction. Will you guys bring back my favorite segment, Ari's Cats?
No.
Seems unlikely.
Seems highly unlikely.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. It looks like we ran out of time for Cardinals talk. We had that scheduled, but we've got to get going.
Yep.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this, the 5th season of the Logjam.
You're gonna show up for the draft, and you're gonna keep fucking some 18-year-old ass. Like your phone in the wall.
Oh, my God's on fire.